Mike, thanks panel. Our next speaker was the runner-up in the Who Wants to Be the Cloud Geek game show yesterday. His picture was also featured in Treb's presentation this morning. So if you don't know him, you certainly should recognize him. So I'd like to introduce Rick Nucci, who's General Manager at Dell Boomi.
Hello, everyone. So I'm going to talk to you for 25 minutes, being respectful of your lunchtime. And if any of you know what Boomi does, I'm not going to be talking to you about integration, although I'll use a couple of examples here and there. What I really want to talk to you about today is what are communities all about in the cloud. And what I specifically mean by that is, as all of us are looking at building cloud offerings, what is the impact and the value of a community and leveraging and exploiting that community and investing in developing that community. And, you know, hopefully trying to inspire big thinking by sharing things that other companies have done in various aspects of creating their communities. So that's really what I want to try to get out of today, and again, hopefully encourage some big thinking. So every time I do a speaking session, I am so focused on trying to not make it a commercial about Boomi that inevitably when I'm done, somebody goes, what does Boomi actually do? And raises a question. So we provide cloud integration, and we help, as companies are moving to the cloud, we help them connect and integrate their applications together. And that's what our company has been doing. We've been doing integration since 2000. We've been part of Dell since 2010. Our focus and charter remains the same. And community has been a big part of what we've done. So that's really what I'm focusing on, is to share what community's meant to us as I kind of take you through this. So I spent a lot of time trying to come up with a definition of community, and that's, we could spend the whole 20 remaining minutes on, debating that. But I kind of liked the biological answer to the question, because I think it kind of really simplified the notion of a community down to its core. A group of interacting, living organisms sharing a populated environment. I kind of like that one because the key is that we have something in common as members of a particular community. We're interacting together in that environment where we have something in common, and there's some value that comes out of that. Because otherwise we won't keep talking to each other as a community. We'll just go off and find another community. So I kind of like that one. And I started to think about why should you bother, right? Why should you actually put in the energy to foster a community? It's not like you can build one, but you can enable one. And so why bother doing that? I mean, what should you expect to get out of that? The first one is because you can. And what I mean by that is one of the opportunities of cloud is you can measure the effectiveness of your community, right? Prior to cloud, you kind of throw your software out there onto the customer site and you kind of hope they're engaging from a community aspect, but you don't really know if they are. Well, you know what your customers are doing now. You know if they stop using you. You know if they never started using you. And most importantly, you know if they're engaging with you and with other members of their community. That's an important one. That's a little bit dramatic, but I think that a lot of people that have built any business that had growth, significant traction, they would tell you that customer-based advocacy was a big reason behind that, right? And so community is where that customer, one of the places where that customer advocacy will manifest itself. Your community is always going to be way smarter than you. They're going to think of ideas that you would have never thought of. And they're going to, we do another talk where we talk about why you should build an API. It's a similar type of thing, because when you build an API, people will consume your application through that API and do things with it that you would have never imagined. And the other reason is that your community creates a real barrier to entry for your competitors. You can't market a community. You either have it or you don't. And it's something that gets built up over a significant period of time and a significant investment, and the numbers kind of speak for themselves. You can't solve this one with a marketing slide. So I think that's sort of the compelling reasons. At least that's sort of why we felt it was important for our business. In the B2B world, I should have said that. I'm really talking about the B2B world. I'm not talking about communities in the consumer world, because let's face it, I think they've kind of got that sorted out. But in the B2B world, I think we're still pretty much at the early stages. So in that B2B world, the members, the types of people that are a part of your community, of course you have the customer and the end user, and that's the obvious one. You have the consultant or the developer or the systems integrator or the cloud service broker or the intermediary, whatever you want to call them. You have that person who sometimes sits in between the provider and the end customer. And then you have cloud providers. You have that might be partners of yours. And these are some of the key stakeholders. You could argue that your employees are also members of your community, but I'm trying to sort of implicitly say that in the cloud provider one. And then we thought about, what are the stages of community? What are the stages of community maturity? And we said, okay, well, how would we sort of measure community maturity? And I think there's kind of two ways, that we landed on. The first one's engagement. The more mature your community is, the more engaged the participants of your community are. And the second one is the ongoing value potential to your business of your community. So as you move up the curve of community maturity, the ongoing value potential increases. And so there's 4 categories, what we are categories. I'm not making a dramatic statement about community categories, but these are sort of 4 ways we thought about how you can think about where you're at in the community, and there's probably others, but I think these are 4 that you sort of see a lot of gravity around. So let's talk about these. So usage collaboration, and this is the one that's probably the most pervasive. Usage collaboration is a community that engages with each other to share best practices in using your product. So it might be a forum, right? Well, forums have kind of been around for a long time. So I sort of put that one lowest on the list. I do like the notion of chatter, because one, it brings a social element to the usage level, and it engages a deeper level of usage collaboration than just a forum, because chatter is inextricably linked back to your customer record. So if your customer's chatting, you can see that in your customer account. And so it's a nice social meets enterprise. It's a good marketing story, but there's also actually some real legitimacy to it. And so I wanted to call that one. I think it's a good example because it does take usage collaboration and kind of bring it to the next level. One of the things that we did that has been successful for us around usage collaboration is collecting feedback about our product and building that mechanism right into the product. So when you log into the offering and you're working and you go, geez, I wish it did this, you can one click immediately go and submit that idea. You can look at what other members have submitted and you can vote on their ideas. The most popular things float to the top. These are well-known products that power this. But my point in sharing this with you is, the other discipline we put ourselves into is we committed that we would implement 25% of the most popular feedback items. So as the community member, you feel like we're listening to you because we're actually doing the idea that you gave us. So again, kind of slides you up that engagement level a little bit more. The next one is new development. So new development is somebody is building something on top of my offering. They're building something new, and that could be I have a platform and people are building an app on top of my platform. It could also be that I have an app and I have an API and people are building a net new application on top of my API. There's a couple different ways you can measure that, but now you're starting to get into this notion of developing